What if Neymar actually won the World Cup? For a lot of people, that probably sounds impossible. Neymar is getting older, injuries have followed him for years, and every World Cup he's played in seems to end the exact same way. Not with a trophy, not with a celebration, but with heartbreak. And that's what makes this so interesting, because we've seen a story like this before. Back in 2018, most people had already accepted that Lionel Messi would never win the World Cup. Argentina looked finished, the criticism was relentless, and every tournament seemed to add another painful chapter to the story. Then Qatar happened, and suddenly, everything changed. Now Neymar finds himself in a strangely similar position. One last World Cup, one last chance, one final opportunity to give Brazil something they've been waiting over 20 years for. Because if Neymar somehow pulls this off, we're not just talking about another trophy. We're talking about the moment that completely changes how football remembers him. The reason people struggle to believe in Neymar isn't because he lacks talent. Nobody questions that. The problem is that every World Cup of his career feels like a reminder of what could have been. In 2014, Brazil were hosting the tournament, and Neymar looked ready to become the hero of an entire nation. He scored 4 goals in the competition and was carrying Brazil through the knockout rounds before a back injury against Colombia ended his tournament. A few days later, Brazil suffered the infamous 7-1 defeat against Germany, and suddenly Neymar's first World Cup became one giant what if. Then came 2018. Neymar was older, more experienced, and Brazil arrived in Russia as one of the favorites. But once again, the run ended early when Belgium knocked them out in the quarterfinals.
Belgium! What is going on here?
Another World Cup gone. Another opportunity missed. And then there was 2022. Honestly, this one probably hurt the most. Brazil looked incredible. The squad was loaded with talent, Neymar was still playing at a high level, and after scoring in extra time against Croatia, it looked like he had finally delivered the moment Brazilian fans had been waiting for. Then, Croatia equalized. The game went to penalties, and Brazil were out. 3 World Cups, 3 different stories, 3 painful endings. That's why so many people believe Neymar's chance has already passed. But football has a habit of surprising people when they least expect it. Because if there's one thing football fans should have learned over the last few years, it's that you should be very careful before declaring someone's international story finished. Before Qatar, Messi's career looked completely different from how we remember it today. People focused on the finals he lost, the trophies he didn't win, the opportunities that slipped away. Every tournament seemed to add more pressure and more criticism. Some people even argued that no matter what Messi achieved at club level, his legacy would always feel incomplete without a World Cup. Then, one tournament changed everything. The same player who was criticized became a national hero. The same career that looked unfinished suddenly became football's greatest fairy tale. Now, this doesn't mean Neymar is guaranteed to follow the same path. Football doesn't work like that. But it does show how quickly things can change. Because when people talk about Neymar today, they often talk as if the story is already over, as if we've already seen the final chapter. The reality is that we haven't, and that's what makes 2026 so fascinating. Because unlike previous World Cups, Neymar might finally have something he's rarely had throughout his international career: the right team around him. One of the biggest reasons Brazil struggled in previous tournaments was that everything seemed to revolve around Neymar. Whenever Brazil needed a goal, it was Neymar. Whenever they needed creativity, it was Neymar. Whenever they needed a moment of magic, it was Neymar. That's no longer the case. Brazil now have one of the most talented groups of attacking players in international football. Vinicius Jr. has become one of the most dangerous wingers in the world. Rafinha continues to deliver in big moments, and players like Endrick represent the next generation already pushing their way into the squad. For the first time in a long time, Brazil don't need Neymar to carry the entire attack by himself, and that could be exactly what makes them dangerous. Because the best version of Neymar in 2026 might not be the player who tries to dribble through 4 defenders every time he touches the ball. It might be the experienced version. The player who picks his moments, controls the rhythm of attacks, and lets the talent around him do some of the work. That's what made Argentina so dangerous in 2022. Messi didn't have to do everything alone anymore. And Brazil are slowly building a team that could create a similar situation for Neymar. The squad has quality. The attack has depth. The experience is there. On paper, there is no reason Brazil can't compete with teams like Argentina, France, Spain, or England. But having a great squad and winning a World Cup are two very different things. Because even if Brazil have all the talent in the world, there's still one question that nobody can avoid. Can Neymar's body survive long enough to get him there? As the next World Cup approaches, one question still remains. Should Brazil still build its team around Neymar? Now let's say Neymar stays healthy. Let's say he arrives in 2026 in good shape and ready to play. That creates a completely different problem. Should Brazil still build the team around him? 10 years ago, that question would have sounded ridiculous. Of course they should. Neymar was Brazil's best player, their biggest star, and the one guy capable of deciding games completely on his own. But football changes fast. Today, Brazil have Vinicius Jr., they have Rafinha, they have Endrick coming through. For the first time in Neymar's international career, there is a genuine argument that Brazil don't need him to be the center of everything anymore. And honestly, that might be a good thing. Because if you watch Neymar today, he's not the same player he was at Santos. He's not the guy receiving the ball on the wing and trying to dribble through 3 defenders every attack. Over the years, his game has evolved. He's become more of a creator, a player who likes to drop deeper, dictate attacks, and find the final pass. In many ways, the version of Neymar we see today is closer to a traditional number 10 than the explosive winger he used to be. And maybe that's exactly what Brazil need. Instead of asking Neymar to carry the attack, maybe the smarter option is letting Vinicius and Rodrigo provide the pace, while Neymar becomes the player connecting everything together. Because the reality is simple. The older Neymar gets, the less important his dribbling becomes. But his vision, his creativity, his ability to unlock defenses with one pass, those things don't disappear. If anything, they get better. And that could completely change how Brazil approach this World Cup. And maybe that's why the idea of Neymar winning the World Cup is so fascinating. Because for more than a decade, Neymar has been one of the most talented players football has ever seen. He's won trophies, broken records, and became Brazil's all-time leading goal scorer. Yet whenever his career is discussed, the conversation always seems to come back to the same thing: the World Cup. The one trophy that's always been missing. Of course, none of this is guaranteed. World Cups are brutal. One mistake can send you home. And if Brazil are going to win in 2026, they're eventually going to have to beat the very best. Think about Neymar's goal against Croatia in 2022. For a few minutes, it looked like one of the defining moments of his career. Then, everything collapsed. That's the difference between winning a World Cup and going home. Brazil already have the talent. The question is whether they can finally hold their nerve when those moments arrive. But football has a funny way of surprising people. Very few people believed Messi would complete his story in Qatar. And that's why it's impossible to completely write Neymar off. Because if Brazil finally put everything together, if this generation delivers on its potential, and if Neymar can stay healthy long enough to make a difference, then the entire conversation around his career changes. And instead of being remembered for the World Cups he didn't win, Neymar would be remembered for the one he did. So maybe that's why people still keep asking the question, what if Neymar actually lifts the World Cup in 2026?